Okay, are we good? About 10 seconds ago, OBS said I'm disconnected, and then said I'm reconnected. We're back. So hopefully you're actually getting the stream. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Or just one. Today's stream. I am here to hang out more than anything else. As always, just chatting, just having a nice time. Trying to figure out how to manage my hair while I'm wearing the big headphones. And, almost succeeding at that. But I'm very happy to be here. I'm always happy to hang out with you folks. And appreciate anybody watching the archive version of the stream later on. That's wonderful. That's really great. I appreciate the support. And the topics for streams are always in quotes, but today's topic is the One Piece live action because it just came out a few days ago, didn't it? Just a few days ago, we finally got to see the One Piece live action in action. And ever since, people have been responding to it. People have been chatting about it. And forming and voicing opinions. Which is what we love, you know? We love that stuff. We love that stuff about the internet, don't we? So we will be talking about the show. Basic Nerd, who's already in the chat, I know for a fact that Nerd has been looking forward to this series quite a bit. And we've talked a little bit about it in past streams. Thanks to them, I was aware that the show was coming out when it was first releasing, so I was on top of it. I appreciate that, Nerd. Thank you so much for providing that service to everyone here and to me personally. Wise, as always, just going through video game music that's vaguely thematic. Let me catch up on the chat here before the stream even started. Nerd is saying it's good. And Nerd says, I've only seen up to episode 4, but I still have my opinions. First off, it's good. Somehow it broke the anime live action curse. I'm very happy to hear that's how you feel about it. that you've been enjoying it so far. I'm a little bit surprised that you haven't gone through the whole first season yet, but you know. So it's long. It's long. The episodes are what, almost a full hour, I think. I'd have to check on the runtimes, but they are long, and it's what, 8 episodes total. So it's definitely a commitment to get all the way through. So I understand that. I have watched all of the first season at this point. I think it took me 2 days. I really wanted to binge it all the first day for reasons I may or may not get into later. But I just didn't have the time. It was too late, you know. And so, yeah, it was not until the next day. Cleaned up, finished up the rest of those episodes, and it didn't change my perspective. I think my opinion of the whole thing stayed pretty much the same between those 2 watch sessions, and I think it has stayed the same since that time, just in like processing the show and everything, and also even after going back to watch a bunch of episodes of the anime, which I have been doing lately. In particular, I wasn't rewatching the early episodes that they're covering in this show, but I was just continuing with my watch through. So I'm somewhere in the 300s with the anime. So I just did some more of that. I just kept up with that a little bit more. And it felt great, I'll say. It felt really, really good to jump back in. It had been a while since I was really tracking along with the anime. And it's just, it's delightful. It's delightful. It really is just like an adventure show that never ends. Like whatever serialized adventure show you can think of. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a comparison I make a lot. Where like just imagine that show never stopped. Just imagine that was like one of the most popular things in the world, and they have continued to produce it for what, 20 plus years. That is what One Piece is today. It is something that has just been so successful that the fans continue to eat, the fans continue to enjoy all the crazy stuff they can come up with. And anyway, so it was really nice. It was really nice going back to the anime after the live action adaptation and being reminded what that felt like. Really loved that. Anyway, Nerd says, I'm watching each episode 2 times in a row, trying to catch in details. Wow. I mean, I'm not against that at all. That's a cool idea. But I guess I would just be like, I feel like I would end up doing a first watch through of just one watch per, and then follow up with repeat watches. But that's just me. And I think it was just because I do get caught up in it sometimes, big shows, a release that I'm really excited for. I'm on the edge of my seat. Yeah, I want to see how everything gets wrapped up. I want to see if they've made any major changes and then go back later and look for little stuff. But yeah, totally fair. So you probably know the individual episodes better than any of us at this point. So very cool. I'm glad you've been having a great time with it. There's a lot to say, and I don't know how much I want to say, just because this isn't a review. This, it's just a stream. We're just hanging out. I'll get on to other subjects as well soon enough. But I was doing a little teensy bit of research, just diving into the credits here. Specifically, I wanted to look up series directors, the cinematographers, and the editors as well, because I think that those are 3 roles. Well, director, obviously. They're important roles in general, of course, but they are especially important here, and I think you can really, really, really tell when those roles change hands, so to speak, like when it's someone different taking on that role for a particular episode. And as you can see here, they changed roles a lot. Like it's not like you had one editor for the whole season. You did not have one cinematographer for the whole season. You also did not have one director for the whole season. When I looked it up initially, it said that Mark Jobst was the director for the whole thing. It's not true. It's not true. He only did a couple episodes, so it was very much a work for hire thing. This stuff is also not uncommon in television in general, right? It's very common to have a different director for each episode. You will have directors return for future episodes or whenever they're free, whatever. But yeah, here in particular, it felt just a little tiny bit strange that it was only 8 episodes, but they changed these roles so much. Interesting choice. And yeah, those decisions absolutely had a major impact on how the show feels from episode to episode, and also overall as a total product. Nerd says Iñaki was a really good Luffy. His body language and his voice is just amazing. And Nerd also says in episode 4, I did see a Panda Man cameo. Glad he's in there. Much like the manga and anime in the background. Yeah, so that's one thing. Actually, that's a decent point of transition to some of these stills that I was pulling up here. So a very big noticeable thing about the way that they have adapted this here, and it often feels like they're I was about to say it feels like they're adapting more from the manga than from the anime, but I don't think that's really true. I think it's an even split. I think they're borrowing a lot from the manga, and they're definitely borrowing a lot from the anime. And one thing in particular that we see a ton of in the One Piece live action is extreme close-ups in general, but especially extreme close-ups with wide-angle lenses. And this is something that, well, for one thing, it was also very common in the Cowboy Bebop live action on Netflix. But historically, it's something that comes up every once in a while but really only in short bursts, because it's a very stylized look. Here is a just one particular example from the Spike Lee movie Do the Right Thing, from what, 94? It was from the 90s. And in particular, there are these scenes where there are like really tense confrontations between characters, and that's when you start to get these extreme close-ups, often with wide-angle lenses. This is also at a Dutch angle, so everything about this shot is supposed to make us feel tense, uneasy, yeah, just on edge overall. It was also just trendy in general in the 90s to see a lot of close-ups with wide-angle lenses. But beyond that, another, well, somewhat similar usage is in the famous Soviet movie, Soy Cuba, or I Am Cuba, in my accent, that's how I would say it. And these cinematographers, all-time favorites, of course, and it's a fantastic movie, but they also have a ton of stuff where they're shooting relatively close, and they absolutely love extreme wide-angle lenses. This is terrible resolution, but you still get the idea. So you get weird perspectives, you start to get lens distortion on some stuff, and it's very effective. It's accomplishing a completely different goal as compared to what Spike Lee was doing over here, and the cinematographer for that movie, whose name I forget. You get my point. It serves different purposes. Now, in the live action here, in the One Piece live action, it almost feels like the extreme close-ups, and especially the close-ups with wide-angle lenses, were a one-to-one translation. Right? So let me see real quick. Oh, what? Oh, I installed Adblock Plus, in case anybody's curious. I just want to, out of curiosity, I want to look at some panels. I don't read a lot of the manga, but I have a feeling that there are plenty of close-ups, or the equivalent of close-ups, in the manga, and entire frames where, like, you know, a very dramatic moment. There's no background here. It's just the character's face. The character's expression is the most important thing. And similarly, you see that in the anime, although I have seen a little bit of criticism for that sometimes, where people are like, oh, they just didn't want to animate other stuff, because if all you have is a face on the screen, you don't have to worry about backgrounds. You don't have to worry about other characters moving around and other details in general. It's efficient to have a lot of close-ups. Some people don't like that. I think it's just fine, and especially for an anime that's as over the top as One Piece is, it works very well. It delivers that character emotion. It puts your focus on the voice acting performances as well. It totally makes sense. Now, in the live action, in the show, there were just a lot of times where the close-ups were upsetting to me. Where I thought they looked like actively bad, and I was very confused by that, because if it is out of a slavish devotion to the source material, I think that's a problem. I think that's way, way too close to the original, and you start to lose the sense of adaptation. You know, you start to lose the sense of, oh, but this is a completely different project. Like, you don't want to just go frame for frame, beat for beat, the exact same stuff. And they've definitely changed things about the story and how the individual story arcs unfold in the live action. So why not also change the look? But anyway, just my little note on close-ups with wide-angle lenses, and why I had these other references pulled up. But we can move on now. We can talk about some other stuff. Nerd says, there's one change I don't like. It's a character that died, that did not die in the original, but I can see why they killed him based on a story reason. That change will make a scene much, much sadder if they get there. Who is the character? Just out of curiosity. I mean, I'm not too worried about spoilers for the show, for the anime, even at this point. I'm just too far behind, you know, so it's okay. But feel free to tell me, yeah, feel free to let me know, because I don't think offhand, I don't think I know what that change is, or who that character is. Who else? Who's the little boy? Who's the little sailor boy? What's his name? Buppy or Bippy, something like that. I'm gonna find him. I have a couple. Kobe, close enough. Kobe was a choice. How do you feel, nerd, about like the emphasis of Kobe in this particular adaptation? At least so far. Trust me, he stays there throughout the rest of the season. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So I can't even show these trailers. I was hoping to get some details here. Not getting any useful details there. Basic Nerd says they killed Mary, which will make it sadder when they burn the Going Mary. Sure. Yeah, that could add resonance, rather. Yeah, no, in general, character deaths are powerful. They have to be deployed just right, of course. You can't make it feel unearned. You can't make it feel cheap when a big character dies, even if that character has been really well established in the source material and not the new adaptation. Like, it just doesn't work if you're really if you're too quick and easy with the character deaths. I have not been getting the sense of that so far. And in terms of like major changes to the series overall, based on my kind of loose memory of the first 150 or so episodes of One Piece, I think I'm mostly on board. I'm very much on board with how condensed everything feels, and it just has to. One Piece is extremely well known for filler episodes, filler anime, where there's one single thing happening in sort of the prime timeline in present tense with our favorite characters, and they'll be like, you know what? Between the beginning of that thing happening and the end of that thing happening, we're going to have 7 or 8 flashback episodes of stuff you've seen before. And on the one hand, that's efficient. It's a cost-saving thing. It's the clip show thing that's gotten talked about a lot before. But beyond that, back in the day of live airing television, when that was the only way to watch stuff, it made a lot more sense, because we're talking about years and years between the introduction of a character and this big giant event happening in the current episodes. So it kind of made sense. Like, oh yeah, let's go back and dwell on Nami's introduction a little bit, because it's been literally 3 years since those episodes were aired for the first time. Totally makes sense. So I get why filler existed in the anime, and I'm very glad that for the most part, it doesn't feel like the show is wasting time. There are certain expansions, it seems, like certain story arcs or even individual scenes get expanded, blown out, jacked up in terms of overall spectacle and stuff like that. I'm mostly okay with all of that. However, there was kind of this creeping feeling that it was also going too slow, and I don't know why, because it wasn't. I think it's very quickly paced, if that makes sense. And things were moving along, and I was like, oh, okay, we're past this. We're past the Arlong bit, or whatever. We're past this particular story arc. We can move on to the next thing. And even so, at the same time, there were moments when I just felt like, oh, okay, I'm kind of ready for them to do something different. Like, I'm not getting a lot out of a particular scenario or a character thing or whatever. So anyway, bit strange. I don't know. Maybe that's just a me problem. Just something about my preferences for the pacing or something like that. I don't know. But I'm sure it was a real challenge to adapt from the anime, where everything takes so long to happen that it's kind of mind-blowing. Anyway, let's see. Nerd says, I do like what they're doing with Kobe. I believe they're based off the cover stories from the manga, one-page side stories that are on the chapter pages of the manga. Okay. If you didn't notice, during the scene where Kid Luffy first gets his straw hat, you can hear Blink no Sake, which is Brooke's song in the background. Oh, that's a fun little Easter egg. And that's the other thing. That's something that we can say about literally all modern adaptations of big famous properties, especially what could be considered like nerd properties, things like that. Um, it's just it is the status quo at this point that there just needs to be a million Easter eggs, because they know, this is not something somebody's going to watch on TV once. It's something they will watch on their internet browser or smart TV or their phone, and they'll have the ability to go in and rewatch stuff a million times and to notice all the small details. So I am on board with that in general. Like, I appreciate how many Easter eggs get stuffed into a lot of these adaptations. And yeah, it's rewarding. And that's why they're called Easter eggs in the first place, is that it's fun to discover these things. And yeah, and feel like, oh yeah, I know that. I know the source material really well. This is for me. This is specifically an element of the show that is meant to make me feel good for being a fan. I think that just makes sense. So it's just kind of a smart move. It's a very common move nowadays as well, as I just mentioned, but I have no issue with that. I quite enjoy seeing Easter eggs, specifically for something that I'm really into. If there's a series or a property that I'm a huge fan of, I'll take that stuff all day long. Love the Easter eggs. Give me all the Easter eggs you can. It's great. Okay. Am I caught up? Yeah, I think I'm caught up on the chat so far. And as far as I've seen, I'm really trying to, again, I'm not doing a review here, so I'm trying not to share too many of my own thoughts on the show so far, but talking about it in a more general sense. And that is one thing that I've noticed kind of generally, is that it seems like most of the reception to the show online has been pretty positive. I don't know if you would agree with that, Nerd, but at least so far, a lot of people seem to be on board. Plenty of discourse. There are differing opinions, of course. There are exceptions, but it seems like, just based on score aggregators and crowdsourcing stuff, it does seem like it's mostly a positive reception. Seems like people are into it, and that's good news overall. That's good news for fans of the series, of course. It's great news for Netflix. As Nerd said, there has been a very negative perception of the anime live action adaptations, and for very good reason, because they suck. And even the concept of a live action remake or adaptation of a primarily animated property is something that I find personally offensive, because it kind of implies that live action is automatically more legitimate and more prestigious than animation. And that is not how I feel about animation at all. So whether it's Disney stuff, whether it's live action adaptations of anime, in every single instance, I feel like I'm being talked down to by the producers, showrunners, executive producers, definitely, and anyone else who invested financially in that project. I hate it. And that's how a lot of people have felt about other live action adaptations of anime in the past, especially the ones on Netflix. So, I get that. I get that there's a residue there. There's some negative feelings left behind there from that stuff. So, yeah, great news for Netflix. Whether or not this will encourage them to also produce even more live action anime, or whether they'll be like, oh, this is just a one-time thing, and we're not confident enough in another project's success to actually greenlight it, I have no idea. I do get the feeling that they're looking pretty hard at just renewing this automatically for a season 2. I think at least currently here on September 5th. Wow, it's September 5th. I think it's not confirmed officially so far, but just based on the reception, and also it's just the number of views. Like, it's been very high up there on Netflix since its release, top 10 or whatever they call it. So it would not be surprising to me one bit if they were just like, yeah, of course, season 2. That said, no way are they going to have this run parallel or catch up to the anime. Absolutely not. I do not think that's any kind of possibility. We don't live in that world. Also, in general, Netflix has said in the past that they really don't care that much about having a series run forever. They want it to make its money, and in their terms means attracting and retaining subscribers, and specifically getting views and getting people to stay on their platform for as long as possible. If it does that for a handful of seasons, they're done. They get out. They pull the plug. I don't know. Orange is the Black. Orange is the Black. Orange is the New Black is probably one of the longest running, and even that didn't run for that long. BoJack Horseman ran for 6 seasons, 5 or 6 seasons, and they were like, okay, we're done, we're out, we're moving on to something else. So even if this live action adaptation continues to be wildly successful and it really cushions their subscriber numbers and all the metrics that they really care about, it's not going to be more than 5 or 6 seasons at absolute most. I think more realistically, I could see 3 or 4 seasons. I don't know how you feel about that, nerd, but that's just my general sense of how it's going so far and how Netflix would view the whole thing. Okay, let me catch up some more. Nerd says, I like what they did with the wanted posters. Yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen, there's a little stylized thing where it seems like the wanted posters for each character introduction are just in effect, and it is. But then the character will like grab the wanted poster and rip it away. So it's a neat little transition, and it's a little twist. At least the first time it happens, you're like, oh, okay, I didn't expect that. I thought it would just fly off the screen, and that would be that. But yeah, neat. And I mean, Puss in Boots did the same wanted poster character introductions. Many other things have used wanted posters as a way to introduce characters, especially in westerns. But anyway, yeah, neat little trick here, and I thought the effects looked all right. Nerd says, yeah, it's possible. Mostly on 3 Reddits. Okay, we got One Piece subreddit, One Piece live action subreddit, and Meme Piece. Everyone on them are just geeking out. Gotcha. About just the whole thing in general, or about like finding Easter eggs and details and stuff? Nerd says, we'll probably get a second season. Top 10, 84 countries, which is the new record, beating out even Wednesday and Stranger Things. Stranger Things 4. 18 plus million views in 4 days. Well, that's interesting for a number of things. Well, obviously the popularity is impressive. That's great news. I'm very happy for the people involved and cast. Happy for the cast. Like, this is no doubt a nice boost in like overall popularity and that kind of thing. That's cool. That's very nice. But it's also interesting because Netflix really typically only publishes numbers like that if something's really successful, right? So most of the time we have a vague idea of how many subscribers they have at any given time. We have a general idea of how popular specific movies and shows are based on whether or not Netflix tells us that they're popular on the front page, right? Top 10 stuff, or like it's top views in this category or something like that. But it's extremely rare, as a general rule of thumb, for them to just publish numbers, and that's a very specific marketing move, obviously, right? Like, they don't want to talk about something if it's just not doing well at all. So you probably won't see numbers in a case like that. But if something is doing great and it's pulling in the views, they will be more than happy. The marketing team will be more than happy to step on in and be like, oh, yep, no, we're awesome, and it's going really well, and we love it. Kobe, I think I almost forgot his name, or is it Kobe? It's Kobe. I don't like Kobe, and I don't like his performance or the storyline that they're writing for him. Let's look at some photos. It'll be good to get some stills up here. I don't want to just have it be a boring web page the whole time. Let's look at some stills from the show. Oh, thanks. I've already blocked 55 ads. Thank you. Wow, that's been, 20 minutes it's done that much. Hugo says, Have you guys ever seen the Death Note movie from 2009? Also, welcome, Ugo. It's great to see you again. No, I haven't personally. Nerd, you should let me know if you have as well. Football Lover says, Def gonna get a second season. Yeah, it's basically guaranteed. I'm on board with that. I agree. Also, welcome. Welcome to the stream. I am looking at stills from the One Piece live action. And, yeah. Getting to it. I hate that typeface. Advertisement. We don't need to look at that. Is this a production still? This doesn't look like it's from the show. Huh. Doesn't this look like just a snapshot? Someone on set was like, oh, there they go. Huh. Anyway. Have you, Ugo? Tell me about the Death Note. That was also a live action adaptation, right? Here, let me do my Googling. Or didn't people hate that? I did recently see which one was it? I think I saw it was the Mortal Kombat live action from last year or recent times. I did see that I think last week. I never know. Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Street Fighter, I don't know. I don't know that stuff. There's Death Note 2006. Sorry, let me catch up here. Ugo says, that's when they go to what's her face is that? Yeah, that's the mansion. I also forget her name. Ugo. Nerd will know that character's name. But yes, the rich girl who ultimately gives them the going merry just for funsies, as special thanks or whatever. Did I pass it already? Yeah, it's the rich house. Yeah, but just the framing of it and like the scale, something about this just looks to like someone's phone photo to me. That's all I was commenting on, was more the cinematography going on here, and just this. Like, this is technically a leading line, but it's not leading us anywhere. And the cropping is sort of awkward. I mean, we have our horizontals here, don't we? Our verticals are just some folks, some children. And no disrespect, by the way. Usopp, who I did, of course, in the promotional stills, had absolutely no idea which character they were supposed to be. I also did initially think this was a woman, and I'm not trying to, like, obviously gender is irrelevant at this point. We don't have to have a conversation about it, but that was just my impression. Something about the look. I think it's a compliment. Boots too. X's Scott Pilgrim reference. What do you think? Got Pilgrim X right here. Is Luffy one of the X's? Sorry, I gotta catch up here. Nerd says in episode 1, you can see Helmeppo's actor forgot to take off his Air Jordans right after his dad slapped him around the 30-minute mark. That was something too. Just like sneakers, like real world. Yeah, there's Converse, there are Jordans. I feel like there's some other Nikes. Yeah, an interesting choice. Not something that's found throughout, of course. Like, sure, these are shoes you could probably buy somewhere, but they're not like tennis shoes, you know? By the way, did you guys call them tennis shoes or sneakers when you were growing up? In my part of the woods, literally, we called them sneakers all the time. They're sneaks. Good sets. I mean, we have some seams here, but still. Very nice sets. Specifically the ships. Really loved. Do not love that they just copy-pasted in spirit the Straw Hat insignia, the logo from the anime, because they translate other stuff. The wanted posters, for example, are photos. It's photorealistic photos of the actors. This could have been translated to fit the art direction of this show, and they just didn't. They were like, nah, it's too iconic. Can't change that. Ugo clarifies, the rich girl, yeah, that's what I was saying. I forget her name too. Kaya, Of course, Kaya, Kobe. I promise I won't forget Kobe's name for the next 5 minutes. Maybe 3 minutes. Ugo says, no, this is a movie from 2009 where it's from Japan. It was live action, but it had to be dubbed. And we're confirming Kaya. Great. Okay, so Death Note 2009. Yeah, the 2006 one comes up for some reason. Interesting. Or maybe it was a 2006 release and then they dubbed it for re-release in 2009. Either way, no. Do you have some thoughts and feelings on that one? I as far as I know, just through cultural osmosis, I had heard that everybody hated the Death Note live action stuff. But I can't remember whether that was the Netflix thing that they did or this whole movie that you're talking about. So feel free to clue me in, because I have not tracked along with that stuff at all. Nerd says, I'm sad that Usopp's crew, those 3 kids, yeah, that look up to Usopp, weren't in there. Not even his background cameos. You know what? It's funny you mention that, Nerd, because in the introduction scene of Usopp, it's baby Usopp. All of the Straw Hats have baby versions, and by the way, across the board, I like the performances for all of the baby Straw Hats. Like, I really enjoyed the actors playing the younger versions of them. I thought they all did a great job. And I'm always impressed by child actors who don't suck horribly at acting. So I enjoyed them, but anyway, what I'm trying to get to is that in the introductory scene where we meet baby Usopp, and it's a little chubby kid who loves talking about pirates and, you know, lying to everybody, I could have sworn that was just going to be one of Usopp's kid buddies who follow him around and call him captain and stuff like that. I really thought that's where it was going, because I knew right away we were heading to Usopp's storyline. They had clued us into that. So I was fully expecting we would get that parallel with the anime and we'd see those little kids. And I agree, like they're not, you know, the most important characters in the entire show, but they're fun and they're an important part of Usopp's initial characterization. Obviously, over 1,000 episodes, there's a lot of room to characterize and have characters change further as they go through various struggles. But initial first impressions characterization is extremely important for audience response and for the audience being on board with that character. And it is, in the anime especially, because that's what I have the experience with, it is so helpful to have Usopp's little buddies running around and, yeah, looking up to him. Because otherwise, he is an aggressively unlikable character. And very much feels like a character you're just not supposed to trust. As audiences, we don't tend to trust characters who are also canonical, pathological liars. So, seeing that he has these little buddies and that he is a good person overall, you know, that he will do the right thing despite being a jerk sometimes. Huge deal. Super helpful for letting us get to know that character. And I'm a little bit worried that the absence of those guys here will also slightly harm initial impressions of Usopp for people who have never seen One Piece before. For people who don't know anything about it, this is their first encounter with Usopp, and I don't think it's as successful as it was in the anime, basically. The actor is still charming. I actually do kind of like the performance for Usopp. But even so, it would be great to have some help, you know, to make the character more likable right off the bat. So there's that. Ugo says, sorry, it was the 2006 one. It was a 3-part movie. Must have misremembered the date. Don't worry about it at all. You're A-okay, Ugo. I do not mind one bit. But either way, no, yeah. So I haven't seen that one. Is it something you would recommend for like good or bad reasons? Like, is it is it a fun watch because it's bad? Is it genuinely good? I didn't really see the ratings. Well, 7.5 on IMDb. That means nothing. Maybe Rotten Tomatoes will tell me. 78. No, that's the original. Maybe 78% for Rotten Tomatoes for that live action one. Death Note 2, the last name. Yeah, there's plenty of stuff I have not checked out here. And then yeah, 2017. Okay, so was 2017 the Netflix live action one? And that one everybody did hate, as you can see there. Yes, that is not a great response. Strays, by the way, sitting at 55%. Okay. Hugo says everything felt small. All the stage scenes were small. Like when they fight, Buggy's crew off screen. It does remind me of the Netflix show, A Series of Unfortunate Events, where it was all very small as well. That's actually an interesting point of comparison because, yes, I did get his name right. PA guy too. Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm from Pennsylvania as well. Yeah, so we've talked about A Series of Unfortunate Events before. I have the full box set over there, by the way, which has a really nice slipcover. I think it's very attractive. Anyway, so I watched, of course, the Unfortunate Events movie, the Jim Carrey adaptation one from back in the day, and that was when I was still into the series, and I really enjoyed it. I did not end up watching the Netflix version of the show, or the Netflix show, rather. There was no other show before that. And I kind of wanted to, for various reasons. I don't know how people feel about it, but one of the big reasons I wanted to check it out was because the production designer guy, art director guy, is Bo Welch for that show. And Bo Welch, very famously, has worked on some of the most well-known stuff, including some very famous Tim Burton movies, and does fantastic work. Like, it's an incredibly creative look that he gives to stuff. But it's not just one look. He's not just copy pasting. Like, it does adapt. He does change it, to fit whatever the new project is. So for that reason alone, I was interested in checking out that version of A Series of Unfortunate Events. But what you're saying here about it feeling small completely makes sense, because at no point with this kind of production design do you feel like it breaks the immersion a little bit, right? But on purpose. So you are meant to feel like you're looking at a set. You're meant to feel like you're looking at practical effects, as opposed to CG stuff flying around. So I like that. There are times when it can feel claustrophobic and awful. I mean, we don't have to say much about the live action Cat in the Hat movie. Some of us were there when that happened. Either way, yeah, I like the touch that he puts on his art direction, and his involvement in Series of Unfortunate Events seemed like a good match to me. But yeah, if you didn't end up liking that style, I totally understand. Nerd says Buggy's actor was amazing, and I liked how they played off the clown and circus vibe more. I loved how he put Luffy in that locked water box. If it's Buggy as a villain, it fits Buggy as a villain and adds to the drama. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, something about that the water, the locked water case aquarium thing that we're talking about here, it really struck me as like a prop from a magic act, but from like edgy sort of try-hard magic acts of the early 2000s, like Chris Angel and some of those guys who are like, it's glamour magic. It's very for the time it was trying to be more modern, and almost high tech in a way. So that was kind of the vibe I was getting from that particular prop. I do think it was successful as a source of tension for sure. And they also pair that up with like, oh, it's Luffy's, wondering if his crewmates, or his newly found crewmates, by the way, are going to come back around for him. Yeah, no, it works just fine. I think it works just fine. And Buggy as a character, like I can't say that in terms of the anime, uh, that he's like a big deal for me. I think I just kind of cruised through the Buggy episodes early on in the show, and so when he showed up later as like a cameo, essentially, I was just like, oh, okay, there's that guy. He's like the clown pirate guy. Okay, I never had any special affection for him. Um, and again, I'm not caught up, so I don't know if he comes back around or if he's just supposed to be like an early boss, so to speak, for Luffy and the gang. Um, but I'm glad to hear that it was an effective, adaptation of that character for you. And I do think he's a very well beloved character, so that's great. That's great news. Ugo says it was not that the stages look bad; it all looks good, but they would have to make it look small, and it has to focus on the characters. The show, a series of unfortunate events, I assume, was good. I like it. It was a fun watch, but the movie does look bigger. Oh, certainly, yeah. Just in terms of scale and the sense of space, huge part of cinematography in particular, and of course set design and all that. So there's the famous story of I think it's for the first Alien movie, maybe not, but there's a scene where our characters are walking into this big expansive space, some weird xenomorph room, and I think for that they built the set whatever size it was, but to make it look even larger, instead of using their lead cast members, who were adults of course, they put little kids in costumes, and they have the kids walk into the room and they shoot them from behind, so you can't really tell that it's not our leads. But that's all just to amplify that stark sense of scale, massive scale, lots of space. Yeah, that's a big part of overall tone of a scene, atmosphere of an entire movie or show, whatever. And yeah, different people handle it in very different ways. Also makes me think of some of the practical sets from like the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves movies. Similar thing where they really have to play around with scale, and they often do that with practical sets, practical effects, stuff like that. Here's Baby Luffy and Shanks. Yeah, so looking at my notes here, again, I've really been trying to avoid talking about the show today. But one of the notes I have here is that the actor playing Shanks, who is one of these people, who's not a child, is probably my favorite performance of the show so far. Like, of any of the leads, any of the side characters, any of the extras even. Whoever is playing red-haired Shanks is doing a great job, I think. I think it's a very good performance. It's one of the times when an accent doesn't come across as weird or out of place or off-putting. And, of course, in the source material, Shanks is really likable. Very likable character. Sort of a father figure to Luffy. And he's doing a great job. So I wanted to say that very briefly. That is one of the most positive things I have to say about the whole thing. So just wanted to get that out of the way. Oh, look, another close-up. Probably with a wide-angle lens. Certainly with a very shallow depth of field. Oh, look. We've got another close-up here. And a very shallow depth of field. Not a close-up. Unless we're talking about monster scale all of a sudden. Okay. Ugo says each book gets 2 45-minute episodes if you want to see them for the series of unfortunate events show, correct? Okay. That's not bad. That's basically a feature film for every single book. But obviously on a, leaner budget, I'm sure, but still, yeah, I probably should. I don't know, it just felt more for kids. I wasn't getting a lot out of it as an adult viewer, so I just kind of stopped. But anyway. Toot says, I've never read or watched anything to do with One Piece, so I have nothing to contribute to this conversation. I'll be a lurker. Oh, no, 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 no. Well, you know, that's fine if that's what you want to do. But don't worry, yeah, I'll probably transition from the One Piece talk a little bit here. I feel like we've given a lot of time, so I'll move on to other stuff. But there are a couple news-ish things with animation I wanted to talk about, including a very recent reveal for a new movie in a beloved franchise that I want to talk about today for sure, and some other stuff. Also, I've just been playing a lot of video games lately. I'm trying to actually play Cyberpunk. I got a copy of Cyberpunk cheap for the PlayStation, and I've been trying it out, and I'm gonna give it an honest shot. I don't know if it's for me, but I'm gonna try it out. So, Tubes, I don't know if you like that one or play that one at all. But I just there are so many people telling me, oh, it's redeemed itself. It's actually a really good experience. You should check it out. So I just kind of caved. Also, it was not much money. So that definitely helps. But if you want to lurk too, that's A-okay. I appreciate lurks as well. Ugo says, I really like Lucky Roo. He was very on point. Who's that? Is that a One Piece character or a Unfortunate Events character? Oh, he's a One Piece guy. See, yeah, the names, I just don't. Oh, yeah. Yep. I recognize the visual. I recognize the character design. He's one of Shanks's crewmates. Yeah. Very loyal. He has a very loyal crew, of course. What else was I going to say that was a nice thing? Nerd says, I don't know if it is because of the live action and it's a real child. Zoro backstory seems sadder in this version. I agree. No, I think it has a lot to do with execution. I don't think it's just the fact that it's live action. It's just the approach they decided to take here. You know, they were just like, oh, we're gonna mimic samurai movies specifically. We really want this to feel like it is specifically historic Japan. There's so much of that vibe. Not historical accuracy, but just the atmosphere overall. And aesthetic, cultural touchdowns are a big part of it. So yeah, I think they were very much trying to make it sadder, you know, than everything else. Nerd says, in Shrek 5, you think they do a Steve Harwell tribute? Because his songs are important to Shrek films. And as you know, he sadly passed away yesterday. Yes. Smash Mouth lead singer. Yes, he did pass away. It's sad. People have been mourning on the internet and on the meme forums. Yeah. But I don't know. I could. Would they go as far as a dedication in a new Shrek movie? Do you think, or would they just be like, how about this? How about a cover? How about a cover? But like a slow, sad cover of All Star. That could actually work. That's not just like a meme idea. I think that could scan. We might try that out. Toot says, I'm happy to lurk today. Cool. Yeah, no problem, man. I got Baldur's Gate for PS5, so I'm playing that now. Only 2 hours in. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Have fun. Have fun. I really hope you enjoy it. I got it on PC. I like the mouse and keyboard controls. However, I'm like, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 hours in, and it hasn't quite clicked with me. And I've been afraid to say that, because this is just like an objective masterpiece and everybody on the planet loves it. So I'm afraid to say I don't get it yet. I'm assuming it will start to click, or maybe I'm just not familiar enough with tabletop RPGs. I don't know what it is, but I'm not quite there yet. I want to be. I bought the game full price. I want to be invested in it and get a million hours of playtime out of it. But anyway, we'll see. Maybe if I put it on the Steam Deck instead, it'll be easier to pick up and just mess around with. Regardless, yeah, really hope you enjoy it. I think that's awesome. Yeah, should be great. Should be a fun time. Oh no, we have the arsonist from the Kyoto Animation situation, which I don't really want to talk about today. Annapurna is doing a Stray feature. So if you don't know Annapurna Pictures is a film, I guess, distributor. I don't think they're really a production company. So that means they give funding to movie projects to help them get completed, and they help them be distributed in whether it's movie theaters or DVDs or streaming services, whatever. They also handle a lot of marketing for movies. Annapurna, if I remember correctly, was founded by a former USC student who was the daughter of a billionaire. And so she started funding projects and they went well. So she made Annapurna Pictures. They expanded into Annapurna Interactive, which is obviously the video game publishing side of things. They have done a bunch of indies. Most of them have been successful, well regarded, and all that kind of stuff. There were some pretty serious allegations about their unwillingness or inability to handle really harmful leaders at different game studios that they were working with. Stray was very popular, and now they've decided that they want to make an animated movie about it. I don't think that I will get more into that, but there you go. If you like Stray, if you like their whole vibe over at Annapurna, yeah, there you go. Ugo says, I think it was sadder due to it being a shorter time spent with baby Zoro, and Zoro never spent that much time with the teacher. In the book, the teacher did not want the sword and just gave it away. Less dramatic that way, huh? That's pretty funny. Yes. So yeah, really, that very, very recent. This was earlier today. Announced the sequel to Chicken Run, one of the earliest DreamWorks projects. It was, if I remember correctly, the first project that DreamWorks did with Aardman Animation, who they're the animation studio. They do Wallace and Gromit, Pirates. They've done a few other one-off things. Chicken Run remains one of the best, for sure. Love Chicken Run, grew up with that one, rewatched it a bunch of times. Came out of nowhere. I had heard no rumors about this. I saw nothing about it until the trailer popped up. I can't watch it, of course, because I'll get the copyright claim. But I'm on board. It seems like many of the members of the cast are the same. They have returned for the project, so that's cool. I thought it was a great voice cast to begin with. And yes, Netflix exclusive, at least here in the US, it seems. Not super surprising, because Aardman has been working closely with Netflix for quite a while. They did a lovely little holiday-themed short called Robin Robin that was released, I guess that was the end of 2021, I think. Not 2022. Either way, they do great work. I continue to be a big fan of Aardman. They can't do much wrong, in my opinion. Looks like we have. Oh, this is old SpongeBob news, so I won't do that. Oh, so this was. Never mind. It was announced earlier. I just completely missed it, but that's okay. I'm very glad to have the trailer here for the first time. Very cool. Very cool. Tude says, with Baldur's Gate, I think. It's still overwhelming to me at this point. The only similar game I've played was the first game in the recent Shadowrun trilogy, and that was widely recognized as a simplified example of the genre. I didn't play the Shadowrun stuff, and yeah, I think I'm mostly on the same page with you there, where I don't play a lot of really hardcore RPGs, and definitely not CRPGs, that are very much in this style, and there's a huge amount of detail, a million different items and ways to approach things. That is very exciting on one hand, and like, I do enjoy the conversations with characters and seeing what's going to happen next. I do not enjoy combat very much, to be honest. It just really doesn't. I haven't come to grips with it yet at all. So it does just feel sort of confusing and overwhelming, at least at times. I'm really hoping that goes away. And yeah, I think that if you put your time in, I think it'll go more smoothly. Also, I've heard that the gamepad controls are pretty decent for this. I'm really glad they didn't just restrict it to like you know, mouse and keyboard is the way to play, and we'll just, you know, cheap out. We'll be really lazy about the gamepad controls. It sounds like they're very effective, so makes it immediately applicable to all the consoles. So that's great news. But I'll try some more. We'll see what happens with Baldur's Gate. I don't know. Nerd says Dr. Stone Season 3 Part 2, Scott Pilgrim anime, and the FNAF movie are all coming out next month. That's wild. I'm very surprised about the Scott Pilgrim anime coming out so soon, just because it felt like we just didn't have any news for the longest time, or maybe that was just my perception of it. But I'm glad. I'm glad I got to see some stills from it recently, and now it's like, okay, you don't have to wait that long. Here you go. That's cool. Yeah, and I'm not caught up on Dr. Stone, but I have enjoyed the handful of episodes that I've seen so far. So, yeah, very neat. And then what was the last one we mentioned here? The FNAF movie. I don't know about that one. I don't know if I'm super interested in that one, or if I'll go to the trouble of seeking it out, especially if it's a theatrical release instead of a streaming exclusive thing. I probably won't. Vaguely curious. I'm trying to distance myself. Because another thing about the FNAF series that I'm really not into is the person behind it all. And all the money he's making from the series and what he's doing with that money, I'm not on board with at all. I don't like that guy at all. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Ugo says it's implied that she unlive herself with the sword. Oh, you're getting around the... I think that's a clever way of getting around the censors here. That she unlived herself with the sword. So that may be why they didn't have that part of the show. Fair enough. Yeah, and I just keep saying this over and over again today. I'm not caught up, so I don't know whether certain characters just show up again, because that does happen quite a bit in One Piece, where it's even Kobe. It's a very funny moment in the anime when Kobe just shows up again and he looks like a completely different character and everybody just has to roll with it. They can do that whenever they want, as long as the character isn't confirmed to be dead. And sometimes even if they are dead, there's still a chance they'll come back. So anyway, interesting. But I won't get it. I'm not an expert in that particular character. I was kind of hoping she would have more to do in this adaptation, or why not bring her back into the live action, even if she doesn't come back in the anime? Like, I think that's a fun dynamic. Also, we don't tend to see a lot of characters that Zoro feels really, like, comfortable around, or that he's known for a long time. So just on the level of character interaction, I think that could be neat as well. And Nerd, as a clarification here, I made a mistake. Scott Pilgrim anime will be out November 17th, not October. Sorry, don't worry about it. You don't have to apologize one bit. But I appreciate the clarification. Okay, so a couple big things in October and then a really big thing in November. That's fine for me, especially if I'm ever considering making videos about this stuff. I don't like when things really pile up. It's not convenient. Apparently Monkey King is doing very well. There you go. Is it a series or is it just a movie? Any other film? It is, yeah, it's a movie. I almost watched it, actually. I almost got there. Got distracted at the last minute and switched to something else. But that's great. That's cool. It sounded like a neat project. I don't know any of the studios involved offhand. But yeah, very cool. Yes, I'm happy to hear about that. Did we talk about this before? There is a move to unionize among VFX employees, VFX artists. I think we did chat about that before, so I won't go into too much detail there. But as you might expect, I'm on board with that. They have not been treated especially well in the last ever of Hollywood filmmaking. So there's that. Hell of a Boss is doing well. I'm not surprised by that. Lackadaisy, I was aware of that. Yes, this is a crowdfunding project. I think... Okay, yeah, it is a series. They're doing little mini episodes. Gotcha. Okay. More than $2 million raised. My gosh. Now, in perspective, animation is very expensive, especially if you are hiring animators in the US specifically. Payouts are higher, in the developed world. So, yes, $2 million is an insane amount of money for one person to have, of course. But for a full production, it's not like the sky's the limit all of a sudden in terms of what you can afford. So, very good. Seems like they have a great shot at success here, continued success, I should say. But that looked like a neat little project. I'm always happy to see sort of grassroots crowdfunded animation stuff turn out well. Especially because it tends to be 100% original work. Like, it's not them like, oh, we're going to do a fan version of XYZ. No, they have their own idea for a thing and they're executing it. I'm always happy to see that. Very cool. Cool. Awesome. What else we got here? Oh, sorry, I have a few comments to catch up on. Hugo says Buggy the Clown first shows up back in 1997, then he came back in 2008. Okay, so he does return after a while. Then stayed for a few chapters, then comes back again. But in the show, he might show up a lot more. You mean the live action or the anime? Either way. Thank you. That I was wondering whether or not he comes back, and it sounds like he comes back quite a bit. Nerd says there's a theory that Zoro's friend is Tashigi. They look alike. They're both good at swordplay, sure. Plus, he's in the Marines, which is a way to become the greatest swordsman or swordswoman. Interesting little fan theory, and why not? That's another thing that, like, they could just do that if they felt like it. I think that makes perfect sense. But yeah, that's neat. I don't know, but yeah, like I said, it would be nice to have that character, or really any other character who knows Zoro from the good old days, from when he was a very different kind of person growing up and training and all that stuff. So, yeah, very cool. Ugo says the VFX vote passed, so I hope things will get better. Me too. I mean, that's the thing, especially in entertainment as compared to video game stuff. There's already this massive precedent for the unionization, right? That's not the case in the video game industry. That's still a relatively new concept over there, and there's not a lot to go on. You don't automatically have a huge amount of bargaining power, but entertainment is incredibly used to unionization and negotiating with unions. We talked about the strikes a week or two ago, I think. So I would hope that it would be successful automatically, as long as they have decent leadership at the union and they're not, don't go crazy. It does still have to be a negotiation. You can't just automatically get everything you want. But in general, yes, if there are baseline rules now for working hours, pay, baseline stuff that supports a healthier quality of life for those artists, awesome. Yeah, really keeping my fingers crossed for that one, but I'm very glad to hear that they have moved forward with unionization, as far as we know. Cool. Okay, what else do we have here? Putin approves federal financing for kids' animated features in Russia. Yeah. To be clear, I'm not a big fan of Putin in general. I definitely want to see state-sponsored animation, though. That sounds like a great time. Some of the old Soviet animated shows and movies are a delight for all the wrong reasons. So if we get a new wave of that stuff, even if this character looks terrifying here, I would be very much on board with that. Cool. Oh, God. I have not been following the controversy about the Snow White remake, and I don't want to. If anybody feels like filling me in, I guess you can. But it feels so familiar to me by now. The types of points that are being made on both sides. the sides that are being taken in the first place. I just don't. I don't. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Nerd says completely unrelated to anything here. That's okay. All of Chris Chan's charges are dropped, and we believe he's back at his mom's house. Yeah, that's. I won't get into that either. I do know a little bit about the history of Chris Chan, their whole situation, but yeah, people like to follow it a lot, keep up with the developments. Yeah, it kind of grosses me out sometimes how people interact with that whole situation, but whatever. Ugo says, I think on SBS Oda, the author does come out and say that they share a family line. In fact, Zoro also shares on the family tree. I think they're like two cousins. So it's potential for those two characters to be related to each other. Is that what you're saying? I mean, it seemed like they were in a small town to begin with, so I guess that just kind of makes sense in general. Sorry, let me brighten this up a little bit. On Zoro's mother's side. Interesting. Nerd says, Federal Kids Animation sure is a fancy way to spell propaganda. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, like, yes. I mean, it's almost more fun if it's not outright propaganda. Do you know what I mean? Like, if the messaging just leaks into the work naturally, because that's what the team knows they have to do, or something along those lines, or because they're getting little bits of guidance here and there from federal authorities, that's almost more exciting to me. Like outright propaganda, that's fun in its own way, you know, especially from like looking back at stuff from many decades ago. It can be entertaining and enlightening or whatever, but I don't know. I think it's more fun if it's unintentional. If they're unintentionally reiterating things that the state sort of approves of already, you know. But regardless, yeah, just the fact that they will indeed have to answer to, you know, government authorities about specific decisions of their children's animation. Not a fun situation for the people having to deal with that, but potentially very fun watching for the rest of us. There's that. Okay. Toot says it's great that VFX artists are starting to be seen as people. Here. The discourse around the redesign of Sonic in the first movie opened my eyes to how often they're ignored and their work is devalued. Oh, sure. Absolutely. And that's another shame about I think specifically internet discourse surrounding a lot of stuff. And it extends to video games as too, and we're talking about some of the same people in these instances, like people doing rigging, people managing character animation, people doing particle effects and stuff for video games or movies or shows. It's when people see something they don't like, even if it's like a subjective thing completely, and the work is at the professional level, if they see something they don't like, or they see something that they perceive as like cheap or lazy, which are very common words that get thrown around when people are talking about media, they seem to assume that that is a reflection of the skills of the people making the thing that they think is lazy or cheap or whatever. That definitely applies to VFX stuff. There was a controversy around Thor: Love and Thunder. Obviously, we don't have to go back to that. But regardless, there is that view. Like, oh, it just means the people doing that stuff are bad at their jobs. And that is just about never the case. With many different roles, that is really never the case. There are so many other factors influencing how all of this stuff gets done, what decisions they were forced or influenced to make, who was making those decisions, and how much time they had to actually finish everything. And so there are a million and one reasons for something to look a little bit off, or for something to look a little bit subpar, and it basically never has to do with the skills and abilities of the people doing the jobs. It's almost always one of these other factors. So it's very frustrating and disappointing when you see people saying that kind of stuff and they're being very glib about it. It's one thing to say I don't like this, and just state a preference and move on, but it's a very different thing to start going after the people behind the scenes, and try to say like, oh, they're unprofessional, like, oh, they shouldn't be doing these jobs. They're not good enough to make this look good. Just not the case. Very frustrating. And yeah, another part of it is sheer quantity. If you ever look at, the credits for a modern movie, so much of it, such a massive portion of the team is VFX artists or people in adjacent departments. It just requires armies worth of people to do this stuff by now. It's really difficult and really time consuming. So I'm in complete agreement, Tudes, obviously, with everything you're saying there. Whether the unionization stuff will also change public perception of VFX artists and how important they are to executing the movies and shows that we love, I don't know. Hopefully, but at least in the short term, I think it's good news for them getting paid good wages and not having to overwork like crazy. Cool. All right. What else we got here? Also, I'll probably wrap up pretty soon. I'm just very tired. It's been a busy day, and I have some other work to get done. But yeah, fun times. Fun times. I'm glad we got to have our little chat about the One Piece live action. I don't expect that I'll be doing a video about the series unless something crazy happens and there's a big noteworthy event or something, or if season 2 is massively different. I guess I could see myself making some kind of video about it, but for now I just wanted to share a couple thoughts in the stream. More so, I wanted to hear how other people feel about it and how, specifically fans of the manga and the anime are responding to it. And at least from what I've heard here today, good vibes, positive stuff. And if anybody's curious or watching the archive version later on, there are lots of things I don't like about the live action. I just don't think that they would be adding much to the conversation right now. So I've decided to really hold back on that. So that's all. But otherwise, yeah, good news here. Yeah, very excited about Chicken Run 2, although that's not the title. Can't use numbers in the title anymore. And I'm being reminded to check out certain stuff. I do kind of want to watch Monkey King and a few other things that were mentioned here. And Lackadaisy, yeah, congrats to that team. It'll be a long time, I think, before they actually complete the stuff there. But very excited to see what comes out of that crowdfunding. But yeah. Nerd says, all right, have a good day. See you next week. Sounds good. Yeah, thank you so much, Nerd, for being here. Everybody else in the chat, thank you so much for participating, keeping the stream active. If there was nobody in the chat, I wouldn't do the stream. I would just stop and eat a snack or drink some coffee. But that's what I'll do now instead. But yeah, cool. I don't know what the sort of big topic or theme of next week's stream is going to be quite yet. If someone has a suggestion, you can lay it on me. But otherwise, yeah, thanks for being here once again. Thank you to everybody watching the archive version of the stream as well. And yeah, take care. Take it easy this week. We all need a bit of a break, I think. And yeah, thanks for stopping by.